What if I told you that the sky above your head is not empty, but occupied? What if the invisible realm is closer than your next breath? And one night in ancient Israel, that hidden realm tore open just long enough for human eyes to glimpse it. Here is the bold claim. The army of angels that protected Elisha was not symbolic poetry, not a metaphor for courage, and not a hallucination born of fear. It was a structured, organized, overwhelming force of celestial beings, so terrifying and magnificent that it would permanently alter how you imagine the heavens. And if you stay with me, we are going to peel back layers most people never think to question. We will explore what those angels may have looked like, how ancient people described heavenly armies, what biblical language actually implies, how cosmic symbolism blends with physical reality, and why that single moment outside the city of Dothan might reveal more about the structure of the universe than we've ever dared to admit. Picture the scene. It is early morning. Mist clings to the hills surrounding Dothan. The Syrian army has marched through the night, silently encircling the city. Horses snort in the cold air. Spears glint faintly under the rising sun. Inside the city, Elisha's servant wakes up, steps outside, and freezes. The hills are crawling with soldiers. The enemy is everywhere. There is no escape route, no backup plan, no visible defense. Panic floods his body. He runs back to Elisha, trembling, and cries out, "Alas, my master, what shall we do?" Now pause. This is the moment most people rush past. But the tension here is enormous. A prophet of God is surrounded by a professional army. The servant sees reality as it appears: steel, horses, numbers, power. But Elisha responds with a sentence that almost feels reckless. "Do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them." That statement is either delusional confidence, or it is knowledge of something unseen. And then comes the prayer that changes everything. "O Lord, please open his eyes that he may see." Notice this carefully. The servant was not blind. His physical eyes worked perfectly. What he lacked was perception of another layer of reality. And when his eyes are opened, the text says he saw the mountain full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. Chariots of fire. That phrase alone deserves to be slowed down. In the ancient Near East, chariots were not decorative vehicles. They were elite military technology, fast, mobile, lethal. To describe heavenly beings as arriving with chariots implies structure, rank, and organized warfare. This was not a random cloud of glowing spirits floating harmlessly in the sky. This was an army. But what did they really look like? Most of us carry images shaped by Renaissance art: soft wings, pale robes, gentle faces glowing like candles. But the biblical record paints something far more complex and far more unsettling. Angels in Scripture frequently provoke fear. Almost every time one appears, the first words spoken are, "Do not be afraid." That alone tells you something. Their appearance was not mild. It was overwhelming. The Hebrew word often translated as angel is malak, meaning messenger. But these messengers are also described as warriors. In other passages, they are called hosts, which translates the Hebrew word sevad, armies. When Scripture refers to the Lord of hosts, it literally means the Lord of armies, celestial armies. And here's where it becomes fascinating. Ancient Jewish tradition and intertestamental writings describe multiple ranks of heavenly beings: cherubim, seraphim, archangels, each with distinct roles. Cherubim are described in Ezekiel's vision as having multiple faces, wheels within wheels, eyes covering their bodies, and movement like flashes of lightning. Seraphim are described as burning ones, creatures of flame who surround the throne of God. So when Elisha's servant sees horses and chariots of fire, we must ask, is this symbolic language attempting to describe beings whose appearance transcended normal human categories? Fire in Scripture is often associated with divine presence. Think of the burning bush, the pillar of fire leading Israel, the tongues of fire at Pentecost. Fire represents purity, power, holiness, and energy. Imagine looking up at a mountain, and instead of seeing trees and rock, you see ranks upon ranks of luminous forms, blazing with energy, arranged in perfect formation. Not chaotic, not random, organized. But the next part will surprise you even more, because the text does not say the angels arrived at that moment. It says the mountain was full. Full implies they were already there, invisible, surrounding Elisha before the Syrian army even moved into position. That means the unseen realm was active long before the visible threat appeared. What comes next may change how you see the sky forever. Because if we consider this from a cosmological perspective, ancient cultures believed the heavens were layered. The sky was not just atmosphere. It was a domain inhabited by spiritual beings. Even today, physicists speak of dimensions beyond our perception dimensions that coexist with ours, but remain inaccessible to ordinary senses. Some theoretical frameworks in modern physics propose up to 10 or 11 dimensions. Now, we are not equating angels with scientific theory, but consider the conceptual parallel. Realities layered over our own, unseen yet present. When Elisha prays for the servant's eyes to be opened, it is almost as if a veil between dimensions is lifted. The servant perceives a realm normally hidden, and what he sees is not fragile light, but military force. The next revelation uncovers a secret very few people know. The phrase chariots of fire appears elsewhere in Scripture, most notably when Elijah is taken up into heaven in a whirlwind, accompanied by chariots of fire. That connection links the event at Dothan to a broader motif: heavenly mobility. These beings are not static guardians. They move, they deploy, they engage. In ancient warfare, high ground mattered. Armies positioned on hills had advantage. Notice the detail. The mountain was full. The heavenly army occupied the high ground, strategically superior, encircling the encirclement. The Syrians thought they had surrounded Elisha, but in reality, they were surrounded themselves. This reversal carries profound symbolic weight. The visible threat was itself encircled by invisible protection. But let's go deeper. If these angels were described as fiery, what does that imply about their composition? Fire in physical terms is plasma-ionized gas, the most abundant state of matter in the universe. Stars are plasma. Lightning is plasma. The sun itself is a massive sphere of controlled nuclear fusion. Could it be that the biblical authors used fire to describe radiant energy beyond ordinary matter? Imagine beings composed not of flesh, but of radiant structured energy. Brilliant, intense, vibrating with power. Forms that shimmer like heat waves over desert sand. Edges glowing like molten metal. Eyes like burning coals. Not metaphorically, but visually overwhelming. But the next part will surprise you even more, because the text doesn't describe them attacking immediately. Instead, Elisha prays again, this time not for opened eyes, but for blindness upon the Syrian army. And the Syrians are struck with confusion. The angels, though present, do not unleash destruction in that moment. Their presence alone establishes dominance. This suggests discipline, restraint, authority under command. And that reveals something extraordinary. The army of angels operates under hierarchy. In other passages, a single angel strikes down entire battalions. In the Assyrian siege of Jerusalem, one angel is said to have struck down 185,000 soldiers overnight. If one angel can do that, what does a mountain full represent? Now imagine that magnitude concentrated around one prophet in one small city. What comes next may challenge how you interpret power itself. Because Elisha remains calm throughout, he is not impressed by the spectacle. Why? Because for him, the unseen realm is not extraordinary, it is constant. The servant needed his eyes opened, but Elisha was already aware. This suggests that spiritual perception is not about creating something new, but about recognizing what already exists. And here's where the mythological connections become fascinating. Across cultures, Greek, Persian, Mesopotamian, there are stories of divine armies in the sky. The Greeks spoke of the gods battling titans. Norse mythology described Valkyries riding through the air before battle. Even in Eastern traditions, celestial warriors guard sacred spaces. Could these widespread motifs reflect a universal human intuition that the sky is not empty? But the biblical account is distinct in one crucial way. The angels do not compete with God. They serve Him. They are not independent deities. They are commissioned beings. The next revelation uncovers a subtle detail often overlooked. Around the man, the protection is personal. This transforms the story from national defense to intimate guardianship. It suggests that divine protection is not abstract. It is focused. And yet, what did the servant truly see? Did he see faces? Armor? Wings? Or did he see forms so brilliant they defied categorization? He uses phrases like the appearance of and something like. Language breaks down when encountering the transcendent. Perhaps the servant experienced something similar. He may have seen outlines of riders mounted on luminous steeds, hooves striking sparks without touching ground, banners of flame rippling in windless air. He may have heard a hum like distant thunder layered with harmonic resonance, as if the atmosphere itself vibrated in response to their presence. But the next part will surprise you even more, because the story does not end with a heavenly battle. Instead, Elisha leads the blinded Syrians into Samaria and spares them. The angels remain unseen by the enemy, which raises a powerful question. Was the true miracle the display of fire or the restraint of it? What comes next may change how you interpret spiritual warfare altogether. And if the mountains around Dothan were once filled with fiery hosts, who is to say the mountains around us are empty now? Think about that the next time you look at the horizon at dusk, when the sky burns orange and red like embers. The same sky that concealed a celestial army thousands of years ago stretches above you tonight. It was positioned as part of a cosmic order that spans far beyond one battlefield. And once you begin to see that pattern, you realize this event at Dothan might be just one brief glimpse into a much larger, ongoing reality that is still unfolding. Now consider something even more unsettling. The servant saw the army only after a prayer. That means the heavenly force did not become present. It became perceptible. And if perception can be altered so dramatically in a single moment, what else might be surrounding us right now, layered invisibly over our cities, our homes, our battlefields of anxiety and uncertainty? The next part will be even more shocking, because this was not merely a defensive perimeter, it was a revelation of structure. Imagine the geometry of that scene. The Syrian army arranged in a tightening ring around Dothan. Above and beyond them, tier upon tier of luminous forms stationed across the mountain ridges. This was not random placement. It was strategic elevation. From a military standpoint, high vantage points allowed total surveillance. If these beings occupied the heights, then nothing moved without their awareness. That implies intelligence gathering, coordination, observation. In the book of Daniel, angelic beings observe kingdoms rising and falling. In other ancient texts, they are described as guardians over nations. If that pattern holds, then the army around Elisha may not have been dispatched in haste. They may have been stationed there long before the Syrians conceived their plan. Then earthly conflicts may be shadows of larger, unseen movements. The king of Aram was enraged because his plans kept being exposed. Was it simply prophetic insight, or was intelligence flowing from the unseen realm? If the mountain was already filled with fiery hosts, perhaps the same presence that guarded him also informed him. That suggests communication, hierarchy, transmission of knowledge across realms. And here is where the scale expands beyond comfort. If a single prophet in a relatively small conflict warranted such celestial deployment, what does that imply about moments in history when the stakes were even greater? The next part will be even more shocking, because Scripture hints that certain events draw not just local angelic attention, but cosmic focus. At pivotal turning points, births of deliverers, confrontations between kingdoms, moments of covenant, heaven responds visibly or invisibly. This suggests that Elisha's encounter may represent a pattern rather than an anomaly. Imagine movement across the sky like streaks of living flame, arcs of radiant trajectories crossing above mountains in silence. In ancient language, a chariot was drawn by horses, but in visionary descriptions, these horses are themselves manifestations of fire. Fire does not require reins. Fire moves with explosive velocity. If the servant saw motion, if even one luminous form shifted position, the impression would have been overwhelming. What comes next will reveal a hidden truth you never expected. Today, if someone witnessed something beyond conventional physics, they might describe it using the language of aircraft, drones, or light phenomena. In Elisha's time, the ultimate symbol of speed and power was the war chariot. That raises a provocative possibility. The description may be an attempt to translate something even more extraordinary than wheels and horses. The story only grows darker and more mysterious from here, because fire in biblical symbolism is not merely brightness, it is judgment and purification. A fiery army is not just protective, it is capable of transformation. Fire reshapes matter. It consumes impurities. It alters landscapes. If unleashed, such a force would not simply repel invaders. It would redefine the terrain. And yet, it was restrained. That restraint hints at something profound about divine authority. Power that does not need to prove itself is the most absolute power of all. But the next part will be even more shocking, because the psychological dimension of the event may be as significant as the visual one. Imagine being the servant, standing there with new sight, seeing layers of existence overlapping the physical world. The human mind struggles to process such magnitude. Awe can paralyze. Fear can overwhelm. Yet Elisha remains steady. This suggests that prolonged exposure to divine reality recalibrates fear. When the unseen becomes familiar, visible threats shrink in proportion. What comes next will reveal a hidden truth you never expected. Courage in Scripture is often born from expanded perception rather than diminished danger. They moved. They walked. They followed Elisha unknowingly into Samaria. That means the fiery hosts did not remove the threat. They overshadowed it. The visible narrative continued, but under the dominance of the invisible one. The story only grows darker and more mysterious from here, because this layering of realities suggests that what we call coincidence may sometimes be orchestrated convergence between realms. Now consider the acoustics of that moment. Fire crackles. Lightning snaps. Wind roars when intense heat displaces air. If the servant's ears were opened as well as his eyes, what did he hear? Perhaps a resonance like distant thunder rolling across the hills without clouds. Perhaps a harmonic vibration like 1,000 strings plucked simultaneously. The Hebrew imagination often associates angelic presence with sound trumpets, rushing wind, voices like many waters. What comes next will reveal a hidden truth you never expected. Sound itself may have been part of the army's manifestation, a frequency interacting with matter in ways beyond ordinary experience. The next part will be even more shocking, because ancient cosmology viewed mountains as meeting points between heaven and earth. Sinai burned with fire when the law was given. Mountains are thresholds. If Dothan's hills were filled with fire, the geography itself becomes symbolic, a borderland between dimensions. The servant was standing at a gateway, unaware until perception shifted. What comes next will reveal a hidden truth you never expected. Perhaps sacred encounters are not confined to specific times, but to moments when awareness aligns with reality already present. The Syrians believed they had trapped him, but in truth, they were the ones contained within a larger perimeter. This inversion hints at a cosmic irony woven through Scripture. Those who appear powerful may themselves be encircled by forces they cannot detect. The story only grows darker and more mysterious from here, because if that pattern repeats across history, then empires that seem invincible may be operating within unseen boundaries. Imagine the Syrian commander surveying the city at dawn, confident in victory. He would have seen stone walls, rooftops, narrow streets. He would not have seen luminous battalions arrayed above his own ranks. That ignorance did not diminish their presence. And here lies a principle that shakes the foundations of perception. Reality is not limited to what is acknowledged. The next part will be even more shocking, because this principle extends beyond one battlefield. It challenges how we interpret every unseen variable in our lives. The Hebrew word translated as full in the description of the mountain implies saturation, not a few scattered figures, but density. The mountain was saturated with fiery hosts. Imagine light layered so thick it appears almost solid. Imagine forms overlapping like ranks of soldiers in tight formation, yet without obstruction, as if space itself expanded to accommodate them. The story only grows darker and more mysterious from here, because density suggests numbers beyond counting, and numbers lead us into another realm of speculation. If heavenly armies exist in vast multitudes, what sustains them? In physical warfare, armies require supply lines, provisions, communication channels. But a spiritual army composed of fire would not rely on food or water. Its sustenance would be derived from divine will itself. That implies continuity without depletion. What comes next will reveal a hidden truth you never expected. Inexhaustible force changes the very definition of conflict. Consider also the element of light. Fire emits light that dispels darkness. If the mountain glowed with fiery brilliance, then even before dawn fully broke, there would have been illumination invisible to ordinary eyes. Darkness would have been penetrated long before the Syrians realized it. The next part will be even more shocking, because light in Scripture is often associated with revelation. The servant's opened eyes coincided with luminous revelation. Sight and light intertwined. But the story only grows darker and more mysterious from here, because revelation can be overwhelming. Too much light blinds. Perhaps that is why the Syrians were struck with blindness instead. They were not prepared for the intensity of what surrounded them. What comes next will reveal a hidden truth you never expected. Protection sometimes involves limiting perception, not expanding it. Imagine for a moment that the fiery hosts were arranged in formations, columns, arcs, concentric circles radiating outward from Elisha, each formation representing rank, authority, and readiness. The next part will be even more shocking, because ancient military formations were designed for coordinated movement. The absence of that eruption underscores discipline more powerful than chaos. And still, the mystery deepens. Or did he carry that expanded perception with him afterward? Did he ever again look at a quiet hillside without wondering what lay beyond sight? The story only grows darker and more mysterious from here, because once perception expands, it cannot easily contract. What comes next will reveal a hidden truth you never expected. Perhaps the true transformation in Dothan was not the blinding of an army or the rescue of a prophet, but the awakening of awareness in one trembling servant. And if awareness can be awakened once, it can be awakened again. The sky above Dothan that morning was not unique in its potential. It was unique in its unveiling. The next part will be even more shocking, because the pattern of unseen guardianship echoes forward into later narratives, suggesting that the fiery hosts were not isolated to one generation. And as we trace those echoes, the implications begin to stretch far beyond ancient hills, far beyond chariots of flame, into a reality that may be pressing against the edges of our own perception even now. And now, step back for a moment and see the full picture we have uncovered together. A frightened servant standing at dawn, an enemy army closing in from every direction, a prophet who refused to panic, and then a single prayer that split reality open. We have walked through the hills of Dothan. We have imagined the mist lifting, the steel of soldiers glinting in the early light. We have felt the fear of visible danger. But then we dared to look beyond it, we peeled back the veil. We explored the possibility that the sky is not empty, that mountains are not silent, that the unseen realm is not passive. We saw that the fiery hosts were not a poetic exaggeration, but a structured, disciplined, overwhelming force of celestial warriors. Not fragile figures drifting in the clouds, but organized ranks of blazing power. Not chaotic light, but commanded fire. Not reactionary defense, but pre-positioned presence. The mountain was not sprinkled with protection. It was saturated with it. We considered that these chariots of fire represented more than ancient imagery. They symbolized divine mobility, authority, and readiness. We reflected on the hierarchy, the restraint, the discipline of a force that did not need to unleash destruction to prove its dominance. We explored the terrifying thought that the Syrians believed they were surrounding Elisha, when in reality, they were the ones encircled. And perhaps the most unsettling truth of all, the army was already there, before the servant panicked, before the Syrians advanced, before the visible crisis reached its peak. The unseen protection was already in position. That means the story of Elisha is not only about what was revealed, it is about what is constantly present, even when we cannot perceive it. The real miracle was not the sudden appearance of angels. It was the opening of human eyes. And here is where this becomes personal. Because the same God who commanded fiery hosts on the hills of Dothan is the same God who watches over you today, the same Lord of armies, the same authority over visible and invisible realms, the same power that restrains, protects, surrounds, and positions unseen forces in moments you may never even recognize. How many times have you panicked like the servant? How many times have you looked at the visible problem and assumed that was the whole story? How many times have you forgotten that what you see is only one layer of reality? Maybe right now you feel surrounded by pressure, by fear, by uncertainty, by spiritual battles you cannot name. But what if you are not surrounded by danger? What if you are surrounded by fire? This is not fantasy. This is not mythology. This is the worldview of Scripture. The mountain was full. And if that truth has stirred something in you, if you feel a renewed sense of awe, hope, or even holy fear, don't let this moment pass. Right now, I want to invite you to do something powerful. Write your personal confession in the comments. Declare your trust in God. Share a short prayer. Testify about what God has done in your life a moment. He protected you, guided you, opened your eyes, or carried you through something impossible. Let this comment section become more than discussion. Let it become a living testimony wall, a place where faith is spoken openly and boldly. And I urge you, share this message with at least 10 people, not casually, not passively, intentionally. Because when you share this video, you are not just spreading content. You are carrying forward God's teaching. You are extending the reminder that heaven is active. You are helping someone else realize they may not be alone in their battle. You are participating in the spreading of truth that can transform fear into courage and doubt into faith. When this message reaches more souls, something sacred happens. It is no longer just a video. It becomes a seed, and seeds grow. Lives change. Faith awakens. Eyes open. There are people right now who feel trapped, surrounded, outnumbered. They need to hear that the mountain may already be full around them. They need to know that what they see is not the whole story. So take this seriously, share it, pray over it. Speak your faith boldly in the comments. Because this is not entertainment. This is revelation. This is responsibility. This is participation in something far greater than an algorithm. And as you reflect tonight, when you look at the sky, when you see the horizon, when the sunset burns like embers across the clouds, remember Dothan. Remember the servant. Remember the prayer. Remember the fire. And ask God to open your eyes, because if He did it once, He can do it again, and perhaps even now, just beyond your sight. the mountain is still full.